All right. Okay. Can everyone see my screen? Importance of mentorship? Yes, awesome.
Yes.
All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, depending on where you're calling in from. I'm Sarah Sterling. I'm the program catalyst for conveners.org, and I'm so excited for today's masterclass on the importance of mentorship. We're going to do a really brief introduction of who we are, what we do, and then I'm going to pass it off to our facilitator today. So conveners.org, we are a small but mighty virtual team located all over the globe. So if you ever have any questions about how to manage virtual team, we are experts in this since we've always been virtual. But we come from a variety of different backgrounds and expertise. So yeah, I'll go into how to do what we do in a second. So conveners.org is a 501c3 nonprofit, legally established in the US, but we are a global membership community. We have members from all over the globe that are really focused on impact and bringing others together to create and catalyze impact in some way, shape, or form. So that could look like impact accelerators that work with social entrepreneurs in training, support, and services. It could look like impact investors or impact investor networks that come together to create financing opportunities for entrepreneurs and other types of founders. This could also look like event organizers. You might have heard of SOCAP or Skull World Forum, but event organizers that are really focused and honed in on creating impact by bringing other participants together in some way, shape, or form to share resources, white papers, etc. And it also could look like leadership coaching, mentorship organizations. So we are a very diverse membership community. We also provide advisory services, which are the consulting arm of conveners.org. And we usually do this work one-on-one with large foundations and organizations like Hewlett Foundation, Kauffman Foundation. And so if any of you who are on the call are not currently members, please feel free to reach out to me, Sarah at conveners.org, or Colin at conveners.org. And so I'm so excited to introduce you all to Jorge Mendez, who's our guest spark intro from Seed Spot. We do these about once a month. They're 90-minute working group calls, and we really like them to be highly engaging and participatory and be around a specific theme or topic. So I'm going to go ahead, since we have plenty of time today, and I want to take advantage of every minute to hand it over to Jorge and thank him again for joining us today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for the introduction, Sarah, and Colin as well for facilitating this. I'm so happy to be here with you all. Patty, Emily, and Stephanie. It's going to be a fun session. So a little bit of intro before I go and share my screen and all the good things. And so Jorge Mendez, Senior Program Manager for Seed Spot. Seed Spot is an organization, a 501c3 as well, a nonprofit. We've been in existence for 10 years. And actually, you're celebrating a 10-year anniversary in October of this year with a little bit of festivity and showcase of a couple of our alumni in Phoenix, Arizona, which is where we originally started, although we are now nationwide. And so with that, we've worked over the last decade, we've worked with well over 2,500 entrepreneurs, primarily social impact focused. We're looking to push forward positive social impact with their ventures, either through the design of their business model and their team, or through their product or service as well. We're industry agnostic, so we work with any type of like area of focus in industry. We also model agnostic. So in our programs, we have nonprofits, for-profits. I don't know what happened there. I'm gonna take a sip of my coffee before I get going, and everything else in between as well. And I'm joining you all the way from the Rocky Mountains, from Denver, Colorado. Very excited to be here. In terms of myself, I've been working with social entrepreneurs for close to 9 years now, and have had the huge honor of working with over 400 entrepreneurs in total from over 75 different countries over the course of my career. Has been absolutely incredible. I've also gotten to work with dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of incredible mentors too. So I'm primarily focused on entrepreneur coaching and mentoring myself, but also program design and execution. So I'm sure, as you know, accelerators and incubators and boot camps and so on. And so through that program design and management, I've gotten to work with a ton of mentors. And so I've learned from them. I'm a mentor myself. I'm a mentee myself as well. And so, yeah, looking forward to sharing all of that. And let's get started talking about the importance of mentorship. But before I get too ahead of myself, Patty, Emily, and Stephanie, love to hear from you. Where are you joining us from, and what are you working on? Patty, can you go first?
Sure. So I am calling from just outside of Washington, D.C. in Bethesda, Maryland. Emily is on my team. We're both with the Innovation Lab at Bethesda Green. She is sort of helping to run our mentor program. So Emily, I won't take away your thunder. You have a chance to do that. But it's been a lot of fun, and growing the program over the past couple of years. And so I have also been a mentor for the Seed Spot program, so I'm somewhat familiar with the work that you do there. And I'm interested to kind of just, be part of this discussion and see, because it's always something in general, I'm interested in constantly improving and, seeing what's working and what's not in different programs, and, what we can pick up.
Amazing. Thank you, Patty. I knew I recognized the last name. I was like, it can't be a coincidence. Yep. So Patty, pleasure to connect here. Emily, love to hear from you.
Yeah, sure. So as Patty mentioned, we both work with Bethesda Green, and specifically with the Innovation Lab program at Bethesda Green, which is both an incubator and accelerator, as well as an amplifier program for later stage companies as well, or growth stage companies. So yeah, as Patty mentioned, I am assisting her with running the mentor program and expanding our mentor program as well. And we recently expanded into specifically SBIR, STTR mentorship. So that's like an exciting new venture, and just always, as she said, picking up new tips and tricks, trying to figure out the best ways to continually improve our mentorship program, because it is one of the cornerstone aspects of our overall program, we feel.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that, Emily. And hopefully I can share those insights, and this will be valuable for putting together that mentor program as well. Thank you for joining us. Stephanie, what about you? Where are you coming from, and what are you up to? Suspense is killing me. Stephanie, I must know. Stephanie, if you don't let us know, either in the chat or through unmuting yourself, I'm gonna have to make it up. Okay, I'm going once. Going twice. Okay, Stephanie is joining us all the way from Fiji. She actually has been working remotely there for about 3.5 years, and she runs a global nonprofit focusing on travel abroad and working abroad as a digital nomad. Stephanie, hopefully that was accurate, if you can hear me. All right, y'all. So let's get started. I'm gonna share my screen. And I like to be real interactive. And so this is not gonna be a typical lecture. I'm gonna pause, ask you for questions. I'm gonna be paying attention to the chat. And so, yeah, this is definitely, I like to be, oh, that's not what I'm talking about. What am I? Wait, hold on. Am I sharing? There you go. There's my desktop. Okay. Sorry. Okay, I think we got, yeah, there you go. Let me arrange my chat, because of course, Zoom scrambles everything up. All right, y'all. Oh, and also, as I'm setting up, I wanna also I let Colin and Sarah know, but I got a brand new puppy, 11 weeks old, and my fiance is traveling, so he's stuck with me in my office, and he's not happy about it. He was being a little grumpy. He just fell asleep, and so he may not bother us at all. But if you hear a dog, or if you see me scrambling, they're trying to save a cable, then now you know why I do that. All right, and so can you all see my screen? The importance of mentorship. I want to make sure it's on the other end. Perfect. All right, y'all. So we're going to cover the importance of mentorship, as well as a couple of tips. This session is designed in a way of speaking to an audience of mentees. However, since I know Patty and Emily as well, you're putting together a mentor program, I'm also happy to just on the fly invert things as well, to be on the mentor side of things too. All right, so the importance of mentorship. I want to start with a story. And this story I heard live from, and some of you may know this. I'm sure the conveners.org team will know this person. I didn't mean to name drop, but I'm gonna have to now because I'm sure you know him. So his name is Teju, and he's a former co-founder of Uncharted, an organization that is based in Colorado. I believe earlier this year they merged with another organization, but he's a co-founder of that organization focused on social entrepreneurship and social impact. And I believe he's currently working for another organization or founder of another organization called Gather4. But I bring him up because he was the board member of an organization that I was working at 5 years ago when I first moved to Colorado. And I saw him share the story. It's about mentorship. And so I'm borrowing that story from him. So I want to give Teju credit. So this is a story to kick off this conversation about mentorship. All right. So I am reading. So if you see me reading, I did not memorize. I am reading a script for this particular thing. So this is the story. A young boy and his father are walking along a trail in the woods. They come across a tree that has fallen across the trail. The young boy looks to his dad and says, "Do you think I can lift this tree and move it?" And his dad says back to him, "Only if you use all of your strength." So the little boy tried with all of his effort and strength to move the tree, but it wouldn't move at all. So he turned to his dad and he said, "I thought you said I could use all of my strength." And the dad said, "You didn't ask me for help. I am part of all of your strength." All right. And this small short story has implications in entrepreneurship, right? So entrepreneurs want to be successful, and they think that by just working really, really hard and using all of their strength, quote unquote, that they can be successful, right? And so part of using all of this strength, asking people for help, and mentors are there to do just that. And having worked with so many entrepreneurs and having run this type of programs across the world, it's a constant, right? It almost seems like a natural human trait of saying, I'm going to get it done on my own. And what that does is that it impedes growth and it slows down that trajectory of whatever project they may be putting together. And so I think the role, as we're thinking of speaking to designers, as we're thinking of designing a mentorship program, is also understanding where the entrepreneurs are coming from as human beings, and the tendencies to be wary of or just not comfortable of asking questions and asking for help. In addition to that, it's very, as an entrepreneur, and I've also have launched my own organization, and so also speaking from that end as well, as an entrepreneur, when you're starting out, you don't have that network, you don't have that community, right? And so you're asking family and friends for help with your business, but they can't help you, and it's not their fault, right? So this is where that mentorship piece comes around. And as you put together a mentor program, a mentor community, it's important to be cognizant of where the entrepreneurs are. All right, so the conclusion or the short takeaway from that story is that people in community and mentorship can be and is an unfair advantage. All right, so for mentorship, let's break it down a little bit. Let's define what mentorship is and the different shapes that it can take, or different buckets that it can fall into. Patty and Emily, I'd love to hear from you, particularly Patty, since you have been a mentor. What's mentorship mean for you?
So I guess, mentorship and sort of what we try to describe to the mentors in our program is really, helping the founders be better CEOs and be better founders. We don't ask our mentors to solve problems for them. We don't ask our mentors to, provide, access to resources that they don't necessarily have to answer specific questions, but more like helping the founders
think for themselves and pushing them in a way that just allows them to be stronger at what it is they're trying to do. So we separate mentors from advisors, because we have advisors who will get brought on to answer specific questions for the founders, and maybe they're specifically working with SBIR, they're working for the company in a very targeted way. And then it's a little bit of difference too between mentors and coaching as well. And I find it a very nuanced world. But yeah, I mean, that's, it's part of I don't know, it's helping founders kind of think, and think for themselves, and to kind of just consider things from a variety of perspectives that they might not otherwise do.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you, Patty, for sharing it. And so much, and kind of building off of what you said, right, is being the sounding board, right? And so many times, not so many times, but you come across the occasions where the entrepreneur actually, or the founder, has the answer, right? It's just about of the questions. It's just about facilitating them realizing that as well. And as a mentor, I'm sure, Patty, you've come across this as well. Thank you so much for sharing. Emily, would you like to add to anything to what Patty shared?
I don't have much to add. I was just going to use exactly the word that you did, which was sounding board.
Yeah.
That we really encourage, as Patty mentioned, like our founders not to come in with, do you guys think I should do this? We ask our mentors to, ask that question back to the founder, because they have it somewhere in their head. They have their answer already, but we don't want them to just be looking to their mentors as their yes men.
Right, exactly. Yes. And that can be very toxic. And that does occur with advisors, with board members, but that's an extreme case, right? Just always agreeing and saying, yes, you're right, you're right. Thank you, Emily.
Of course.
Yeah. Stephanie, if you're there, I won't make up the answer for you, but if you're there, what is your definition of mentorship? Okay. Well, Stephanie, if you have some mic problems, just drop it in the chat, and I have the chat open, so I'll definitely read it. And so basically, what you all share is all of the above. And so in terms of how we break it down, right, like in terms of the finding a mentor, you have that consultant, right, which can be labeled as a hired assassin, for lack of a better term, right? And so a consultant works in the short term, it's paid. Their focus is on their expertise, and basically it's like they do the work, right? And so that sometimes can be confused as a mentor, but it's not. It's not a mentor. A coach, so Patty brought this up as well, right? So a coach is also in the short term, right? There's a sunset where they're working with you just for 6 months, a month, a year, whatever it may be, also compensated. But a coach is focused on leadership development, right? On personal development. And what the main activity, and this is obviously oversimplifying it, but the main activity will be just to ask the right questions, right? Kind of that facilitation to continue on the right path. And so, but a coach, although it can be a little blurry, like Patty said, a coach is also we wouldn't label them as a mentor. Patty did mention advisor, and so that I feel like advisor mentor, that's when definitely the line is very blurred. And advisor, and this is my understanding of it, advisor is like a formality almost of you start out as a mentor and now you're an advisor to the company in a more formal way. But we can have a further discussion about that for sure. I don't have an advisor in this table, but after today I will add it because I think it's very important to point out as well. And then you have a mentor, right? So a mentor, someone's working long term, not necessarily paid. And my experience has been that mentors, at least all the mentors that I've worked with, have a relationship with, that I match with the entrepreneurs that I serve. They're doing it because one, from multifaceted, right? They get value out of it. They want to give back. It also allows them to stay on track with new trends as well. I've heard that from mentors. They want to contribute. They've gone through the challenges and want to help somebody who's going through the same. I was speaking to a Seat Spot mentor just last week, and they brought up that exact point where they said, look, when I launched my first company, it was a huge pain. It was so difficult. I didn't know who to talk to. And then 2 years in, as I was about to shut down, I just met somebody who said, hey, let me mentor you. And it led to a huge level of success and clarity. Right. And so for that individual, for that mentor, the reason why he is a mentor, again, is to give back. And so it does stem from this foundation of I've been there before, it was difficult, or I got help, and I want to do that for somebody else. There are paid mentors as well. There's organizations and companies where you have paid mentorship, and that's a whole nother deal. But I'm gonna be focusing today on volunteer mentors. On both are coming from programs like Seat Spot, someone like Patty, but also ones that an entrepreneur may come across with in their own journey. And so as a mentor, it's typically long-term, although it can also have a sunset, particularly in accelerator programs and incubator programs. The focus is typically in the industry or the business model as well. Again, simplifying it. And then the activity, if I were to simplify into just a simple sentence, high-level gut check, right? And both as Patty and Emily shared, right? It's like, oh, that's sounding board, right? All right, so this is kind of simplified, but I think it makes a case for defining a mentor. And if any of y'all have questions at any point, please drop them in the chat. It's over in the corner of my eye, so I'll definitely get to it. Or comments if you want to add too, not just questions. Continuing with this definition of what is a mentor, we have this like informal mentor versus formal mentor. And so an informal mentor could be someone from the entrepreneur's personal network, even a family member as well, someone that you come across with in the journey, as well as, you know, these type of informal mentor could be a previous founder, someone with industry experience, and this is someone that they know they can reach out to, but it was formed very organically, right? Someone they already knew. And then a formal mentor, that could transition into being a board member, an advisor to the company. They can have been introduced through an entrepreneurship program like Seat Spot or many others as well, right? So there's an introduction that's made. That mentor was not in the periphery of the entrepreneur until that introduction was made, either by somebody, by a program, or the entrepreneur themselves reached out to make that, to introduce themselves and ask for that mentorship and that assistance. This formal mentor, right, can be a C-suite, well-connected, can be a game changer. And then as you begin to transition more into an advisor role, a board member role, that mentor can transition into having some skin in the game even. I've worked with, just 4 years ago, an entrepreneur that I was working with, his mentor, after 2 years, ended up joining the company, being a co-founder, right, and having equity. That's obviously an extreme case, and that's the less than 1%, less than 0.1%, right? But a mentor can go through stages of evolution and be part of the company or have a skin in the game in the company. Okay, so why mentorship, right? Oh, hi, Lauren. I just saw you come in. Hello, and hi, Ian. Welcome. Lauren is my teammate at Seat Spot. Hello, Lauren. Hey, Ian. If you drop in the chat, just where you're all, both Lauren and Ian, where you're all joining us from, and what you're up to, as well. So we're talking about mentorship, as you see on the screen. All right, so why mentorship? So talking about, you know, in the topic of today is like, why is mentorship important? We kind of touched upon it, particularly Patty and Emily, as we were talking about it. So I would like to ask our newcomers. I'm gonna pick on them. Ian, coming in from Washington, D.C., as well as Lauren, coming. Washington, D.C., highly represented, I gotta say, in this group. Ian and Lauren, why is mentorship important to entrepreneurs? Well, I want to hear from you.
We have what we call the better devils theory.
Okay.
So our entire organization is about matching entrepreneurs with mentors. And we look for folks who have addressed similar challenges, but are not currently competing for the same customers. And the way we find them is looking for, almost every culture has some version of the phrase, when you solve a problem, you're rewarded with a more interesting problem. One group who I can never remember, and maybe somebody else in this call knows who it is, calls it, you get a better devil. When I'm writing academic reports, I have to say you get second order effects, but I like the phrase better devils. And so you know, the entrepreneur is usually focused on the thing in front of them, right? They've got to be good at their craft. You know, we can't help them with the thing that they're expert at. It's building the business around it that those of us who are in entrepreneur support organizations are usually involved in.
Right.
And so you figured out how to make 1,000 widgets, but you haven't yet figured out how to distribute them, right? You've reached the point where you've added a new thing that you know you don't know.
Right.
And bringing in the mentors along that track, and ideally finding someone who can stay with you along different pieces of that, but bringing in folks when an entrepreneur reaches a new level of, okay, now there's this whole other thing that I don't know. They hadn't, you know, they might have abstractly known it existed before, but hadn't had to deal with yet. And that's, so bringing in someone who's dealt with those issues that the entrepreneur hasn't hit yet.
Right.
For the values.
Ian, I love that. I wish I could have recorded that. So I did my best to try to record that in my brain.
Well, it turns out that Conveners is recording this.
Oh, that's right. You told me.
They'll give you a transcript.
Perfect. That's fantastic. Thank you, Ian, for sharing that insight. I love the way you put it as well. Lauren, who's my teammate? Lauren, I'm putting you on the spot. Why is mentorship important for entrepreneurs?
I think I loved that, by the way, Ian. I'm also going to be clipping that part of the recording. I haven't heard it put that way, but so perfect. I think another aspect besides the kind of expertise of the mentor and the shared knowledge is also the companionship and the encouragement and kind of the having someone in your corner who you respect, but who's rooting for you. You know, if you encounter a problem, it's that person you can text and say, hey, this is what I'm thinking. You know, have you ever had experience with this? But also someone who cares and who's invested in kind of you as a person in your business, and not just anybody, but someone that you respect and who can really understand what you're going through. I think is another, you know, versus, I guess, just watching, you know, random YouTube videos or going to a conference where you're hearing training or reading a book, but kind of that personal connection of reciprocal relationship.
Yeah, I love that. Kind of like the coalesce. Oh, Stephanie, hello, you joined us. Hello, good to see you. Hi, welcome.
Thank you. Been listening in, and I had like 2 phone calls right in the midst of it, and I'm like, oh, my favorite topic. But I haven't lost touch. So
okay, great. Did you listen to my introduction of you? I hope you did.
I almost caught it. I had again. I know, it's like, oh, really?
So just as one context for Lauren and Ian, and so I was trying to get making introductions of when we first opened the Zoom, and Stephanie couldn't unmute, and so I said, well, Stephanie, if you don't tell us where you're coming from, what you're up to, I'm gonna make it up for you, and so I did, and so But Patty just had to step down and leave the session. So Patty now is out into the world, believing that you're living in Fiji, how I made it up. And so...
How did you know that was one of my favorite topics like 10 years ago? So yes, you're in my head. Thank you so much.
Well, welcome, Stephanie.
Thank you.
Let me get back to you in a second. Ian, I saw you on mute. Do you want to share something on what Lauren had shared?
That's in part also on your previous slide where you had the sort of the two general categories.
Yeah.
I'd like to propose a third category, which isn't that widely done, but is widely done amongst the kinds of organizations that are on this call.
Okay.
So, because I know several of the, including your organization, some of us, where you get a mentor who is a mentor who is not necessarily, he was not informal. They're a professional who is assigned. They're not necessarily paid though, but they do it in the social enterprise world because they're interested. So I said I do mentor matching. I run a dating service, not the one people worry about, but the various ways. Getting somebody, two people who are not getting paid to want to spend time together and finding the area of the, getting the entrepreneur to be interesting enough for the mentor and vice versa. It's a dual-way responsibility. But that strikes me as sort of falling in the middle. They might have the skill set of the formal mentor and they might eventually get equity, but it's not a prearranged. They're there for, in our case, 2 to 6 months. In other people's cases, a couple of years. In other people's cases, the line between mentor and subject matter expert is fluid. Sometimes people like to call everybody a mentor.
Yeah.
Consider 1 or 2 calls subject matter experts, but that's me. Other people have other terms. But like it feels like there's a line in the middle between informal and formal where it applies more heavily in the social enterprise space.
I absolutely agree. I write like a middle-aged doctor. But I gotta tell you, I wrote it down as well. So thank you for kind of adding that third layer to that. And I don't know. I think I caught you and Lauren joining, but I earlier a couple of slides back, it was brought up as well of mentors wanting to do it as well to keep in touch with new trends and new markets and new way of doing business as well, right? So almost like a study. And being involved in that way. Love that, Ian. Thank you so much. All right, Stephanie, where are you joining us from and what are you up to? What are you working on?
Joining from Dallas, Texas. So it's hot, right? And so what I'm up to is basically my board experience is definitely in alignment where I am in Vice President of Leadership, which happens to be overall arching accountabilities for a formal mentor program for the association world. And so simply mentorship has really gravitas very differently even now with our last 2+ years because of just the way we could do it, whether it was in person, in the virtual scheme of things, but now also the shifting of people, their life balance differentiator, right? What kind of time commitment they're looking to do. And what I am finding is the comfort zone now of those who may be seasoned into a specific industry and they're looking for really, and not necessarily wanting to acknowledge, they're looking for that relevancy step, meaning they're understanding with the technology boom, with the way we communicate and connect is not just as different, but also doing the meaningful work of mentorship and mentee, which we would call reverse mentorship, right? And so for me, my sweet spot is aligning the differentiator between those individuals who are seasoned to really sit at the table of those who are really in those relevancy spots, as well as in those spots where, hey, I've got some blind spots because I've not stayed engaged enough. I recognized that I thought I was going to be retiring in 3 to 5 years and recognize the world differentiator now is very different. So for me, I've got an opportunity to kind of step back in, but I want to do a little step in as a coaching perspective a little bit more and engage a program that's really aligned to today and how we can move forward in the relevancy of not just industry, but how we're living those balanced, accelerated lives with different expectations and having different agreements.
Wow, amazing. Stephanie, thank you so much. And I gotta say, y'all, the brain power and experience found in this Zoom room, it's off the charts. So thank you, Stephanie, Ian, Emily, Colin, Lauren, and everybody else that's here as well. And so so it seems like everybody here is in a mentor management position or mentor program or mentor matching position. So my presentation, and I'm gonna make a switch. My presentation is geared towards entrepreneurs seeking mentorship. And so what I'm going to do, I'm going to go through these pieces, but I'm going to on the fly. And this is going to be me doing my Jorge thing. Lauren knows it already. I'm going to on the fly flip it because of who I'm speaking with as well. So as you all know, mentorship is important, right? A startup's 3 times more likely to succeed if they have a mentor. And 92% of startups admit that mentorship is instrumental to success, right? Right. So with a mentor, and again, this is with the lens of an entrepreneur in mind, more likely to succeed with a mentor. You can learn from failures of others, right? So kind of like ultimately trying to avoid failure as an entrepreneur. And what better way to do that, right? And to learn from someone that's done it before. Being able to borrow that experience indefinitely. Also gain experience, not sharing in textbooks. Although I haven't seen a text, I mean, I'm also, I guess, getting older. I haven't seen a textbook in like decades. So, right, but that's not shared in textbook. That's not shared in a YouTube channel. Like, I mean, I don't know when's the last time y'all have gone on YouTube and said, how does this work? And there's about 100 different videos. It's gotten to a point where it's such a plethora of information that it flips on the other side. It's like, I don't even know where to start. Who's giving me the right advice? And so we kind of, the pendulum has swung the other way, where there's too much information that's not necessarily filtered. Right. So the role of a mentor is stepping in and say, look, this is from experience. This is from the ground, from the field. And a Google search is not going to help you with this. Right. Mentors also, like number 4 that Laura pointed out in the chat. All right. So ensure that you're thinking of all these perspectives. Right. And so getting into the mind of the entrepreneurs, it can get to a point where they've had their head down for so long or just very invested that all their alternatives on how to make this work may seem or may not even seem, they're not seen, right? They're going unseen. And so having that ability to bounce ideas with somebody who at least who's within that industry, within that group, is a reliable source of different perspectives and experiences, could lead to exponential growth, both in the leadership development of the entrepreneur, but also of that company and the direction that it goes and that it takes, and opportunities that it's able to tap into. And number 5, right, networking opportunities. And I was sharing this earlier in the session today, but you know, for all the entrepreneurs that have had the honor to work with, and it's so interesting. So I work with entrepreneurs from 70 plus different countries throughout my career, and there's so many constants, and it doesn't matter if they're in Kenya and China and like Russia, Brazil, the US. It's the constant of feeling like they're in a silo, feeling that they're alone doing the thing. That no one can help, right? And we, particularly us here in this group, I'll speak for myself, like sitting in a place like Seat Spot, where I'm matching mentors and entrepreneurs, and so the entrepreneurs that I'm working with on a daily basis in Seat Spot are getting exposed to this mentorship, right? But whoever small business owner, entrepreneur is not in that kind of group, which is the majority of people. They're walking through their own journey. Some of them feeling like they're alone, right? And so also being cognizant of that piece as you're sharing your mentorship program, the value added of being part of what you're doing is saying, hey, look, you probably are feeling a bit lonely right now. Your friends and family, is not their fault. They can't help you. Right? They don't have the expertise or the experience. And so joining this mentorship program, joining this accelerator, joining whatever this may be, is beneficial, is valuable. So showing them that as well. All right. So now I'm thinking as a program manager. So this presentation is going completely different, which is super fun. All right. And so finding a mentor, right? And just thinking through, and this is what we share with mentees, what we share with entrepreneurs. So you get a sense of what's going on the other side of things. And so entrepreneurs are looking for that, or rather, what we seek to help entrepreneurs do at Seed Spot is achieve clarity, right? Someone who identified a market trend, identified that, hey, there's a problem that I've identified, there's a customer base for that, there's a market, I have designed a solution, and I'm going to the market and doing it, right? And so they're within that stage where, like, hey, I caught on to something. I don't know exactly what. It's a bit foggy. I don't have clarity. I don't know how to make money. I don't have a business model that makes sense. I don't even know what a revenue model is, but there's movement here. There's something occurring. I have some sales. I have good conversations. I maybe have a partnership, right? And so our job is to clear the fog, help them clear the fog, right? We can't do it ourselves. We're facilitators, we're guiders, but they have to do the work. And so clearing that fog. And so these questions within the context of finding a mentor, these 5 questions is what we advise our entrepreneurs to do initially, right? So first, like, set goals that you can measure, but set goals that are short term, right? Don't think 2024 is too far, right? It's like, what's going on the next month, the next 6 months at most, and what goals you want to achieve, right? What aspect of your venture are you the least confident in? And as a program manager, like, this is like one of the most important answers that I'm seeking, right? Because this allows me to do that dating match, right, Ian? Right? And so yeah, you want to add something? Go for it.
Yeah, so I love this, and I'm a huge fan of number 5. I'm not a fan of programs that throw mentors and entrepreneurs like darts. Yeah. We have a whole series of dual opt-in arrangements. I know you all have different variations on the theme. Yeah. What aspect you're least confident in, I'm gonna say we take a slightly different view in that we are looking for an area in which the entrepreneur is engaged. So, for example, because they have to care, right? It has to be interesting to the mentor. So, you know, if you ask them what area is your business, you open a mentorship, they'll probably say everywhere, and they'll want it to be true.
Yeah.
It probably isn't, but they'll want it to be true, right?
Yeah.
So we try and suss out. All right. So to use myself as an example,
yeah.
I am a writer, but anyone who's ever worked with me will tell you that my sense of marketing is what somebody else needs to do well, right? Like, it's not my thing. I know what the message should be. I can, right? But somebody else is evidently, if something needs to look good or reach the right target audience or all the various things that marketing is, not my department. But if I didn't care about the message, I shouldn't be taking a mentor.
Right.
Right. And so, you know, if your accountant or lawyer tells you what to do, that's not mentoring. That's just being told what to do.
Yeah.
If they're working with you in an area in which you are also expert, that's not really the kind of mentoring that I think you're talking about here. And it's great when you find it, but it's harder to find, you know, to get another PhD in whatever it is you're doing, right?
Right.
So you're looking for an area in which the entrepreneur is personally engaged because they have to, you know, again, presuming this is the kind of social enterprise focus where nobody's getting paid, at least initially. Right. Based on the majority of the organizations I know in this group, that feels like a comfortable statement.
Yeah.
So what is the, you know, how do you know what the entrepreneur cares about? So least confident in could be, so for example, I am least confident in my abilities to market, but that's not always going to be the same thing as the least confident and an area in which the entrepreneur is actually engaged.
Yeah.
Because it's a date. They have to be interested in what you're both discussing. So that's just a variation on what you said on too.
Absolutely, yeah. It's Ian.
Well, we have 5 there. We have different wording, but like that, culture eats strategy for breakfast. That is so important.
Yes. Ian, just to build up on what you said, right? It's a relationship, right? And so if it's even-sided or uneven rather, right? When like Lauren put in the chat, right, is like seeing the mentor as a fixer, right? And that's an unhealthy relationship in a personal level. Right, and so take that up a notch to a professional mentorship level. That's also it defeats the purpose. But I like where you're coming from as well. It's basically it's like a self-identification of your gaps, all right, and then buying into that process with the mentor as well. And I love that the kind of, not the dichotomy is the wrong word, but we talk about the message and the marketing. Whereas like, I get the message and I know what I want to say. I don't have the experience or whatever other thing to execute it at a high level. Right. And so that's exactly, yeah. Okay, perfect. That's my takeaway. And I love that to add that to number 2 as well. Right. And so, and just fast forwarding to number 5, right? Type of personality. That's so important. I mean, we do this in our program. So actually this week, yesterday, I matched, we have a accelerator starting on Monday. And we have entrepreneurs joining, and yesterday we did matches. And so much of those matches had to do as well with number 5, right? It needs to be as well, like where the mentors are coming from, and this comes from, as a program manager, like knowing your mentors too. And I think it's also like, speaking from this side, is having a relationship as a manager of the network, having a relationship with as many with all the mentors that you work with, which can be a huge task. I'm not gonna lie, and bandwidth suck. But understanding that, where they're coming from, what the coaching mentorship style is important. I personally like to use data, and so when a mentor is part of the network, is gathering all these data points, the industry that they feel comfortable mentoring in, the type of model they feel comfortable mentoring in, that they have expertise in, and then also the personality type and what the style is, right? Because you'll have like in terms of mentor personalities, you have like the best friend, right? Or you'll have like an inspirational teacher, right? Or like the no nonsense, like this is how we do it, this is how it's done. The cheerleader, as right, someone's in your corner, and then like someone who's like a straight shooter, kind of like an offset of that non-nonsense boss, like a straight shooter, always candid. That's kind of the personality types that you may see.
I apologize for taking airtime, but I got a question for you on that.
Go for it.
Other than just asking the mentor, which is somewhat similar to asking the entrepreneur, in that they want these statements to be true, and they're usually true, but yeah. How do you know what you notice about them? So, you know, we, again, I don't know everybody, but most of them, we're all using a similar set of people over, in my case, 20 years, right? In your case, 10. Great. And so I know how I know what I know about my people. I'm interested to know, how do you know what you know about your people? Like what aspects, you're absolutely right that it's important to track various aspects of the mentors to make the right match. Mm-hmm. What are you tracking, and how do you know it?
So we track, you're right. It is all a self-assessment, right? And I think that's a short piece of it, where there are mentors where we have like a constant, ongoing, multi-month, multi-year relationship, where we're able to, at a one-on-one level, understand and also validate like what their self-assessment of what their expertise is. But at the beginning, and this is a point of improvement, right? This is their own self-assessment, and we have no way of fact checking it until it's on the ground, right? Until it's out there, until they're working with a mentee, until they're engaging, and we get to know them better. So there is that process, and a little bit coming back to dating, right? Right, it's like a first date, first impression, self-assessment. This is what I bring to the table, and then as the relationship progresses, or as the connection progresses, right, you're able to see, all right, this is actually validated or invalidated. Does that make sense, Ian, what I shared? Yeah.
I think another thing to add, Jorge, is a few years ago we started, I don't remember what the categories are called, but we came up with these like persona names. And I want to say there's like 4 of them or something, just based on, okay, let's think about all of our mentors. Let's break them into categories. There's kind of like the best friend. There's the like, workout trainer. There's the age or like the bearded like philosopher. Kind of these different, and we did give them cute names, and I can't remember what they are, but we both kind of allow, I think, if I'm not mistaken, when they're intaking, to say like, which of these, do you most relate to? But also, Jorge, I know you have kind of like this at least a 10-20 minute phone call when they're checking out the program. And I think at the back of your mind, if they're really talking about, I love coming alongside people.
Yeah.
Some of my proudest moments are when I was able to encourage. Then it's like, okay, let's internally at least tag them as the best friend type, versus, I have these spreadsheet system. We have some mentors who are like, they've literally built tools where their mentees can plug in certain numbers and then it spits out things. It's like, that person's going to be really great for, I want to solve this like very tactical thing.
Yeah.
And so I know that's one aspect that we actually do have like in our CRM. And hopefully like a very loving and kind way, but kind of those persona categories that we try to, it's not an exact science, but kind of tag people with.
Yes, I fully agree, Lauren, and thanks for the assist, because I actually did forget that. So I've spoken to 20 mentors over the last 2 months. And so we have this 30-minute conversations with the mentors. It's with new mentors and then with existing mentors, just to catch up as well. But again, it's going back to relationship building. And it does take bandwidth, and it does take energy and effort. And it takes the right person to do it as well. Right, in terms of the management side, on the back end of things, the right person with the right relationship skills. I also want to give a shout out. Someone who just joined us is Senna Asazu, and she is a former student of mine. Hi, Senna. Can you hear us? Yes, and I guess informally, a mentee.
Hi, I can hear you.
Senna, so good to hear. So good to see you here. All right, so gonna move on, and I'll send you a WhatsApp after this. We can catch up. But yeah, it's a mentee of mine that's here, former mentee of mine. All right, so this is again going back on track in terms of what we share with the entrepreneurs. Right, so these informal networks of where they can connect with these entrepreneurs or do a cold outreach to entrepreneurs. I'm a mentor, sorry. Cold outreach, right? So we got the trusted LinkedIn and Crunchbase and networking events. I think that this, in terms of coaching the entrepreneur, this piece can be incredibly intimidating. And I've noticed, maybe I'd love to hear from you if you notice this as well, in terms of on the entrepreneur side and the mentee side, when it comes to them leveraging the networks and seeking their own mentors outside of the program structure and this kind of dating piece that we are the managers of. I've noticed just a very, in terms of percentage, a low percentage when they're out to do it on their own, of seeking this in a structured way, seeking mentors, having those conversations on their own. So I've seen rather that having even a coaching session with the mentees about how to do this, right? It's like how to properly make the ask, how to present yourself to someone that you would like to ask them to be, just to have a conversation with, right? To start this relationship with, and see that evolves into a mentorship working relationship as well. All right, and then obviously it's formal networks, right? So all of us in here as well. There's these programs of all sorts and organizations that are incredible. To be honest, I don't think 10 years ago, most of these organizations don't exist, including SeedSpot. We're celebrating our 10-year anniversary this October 19th, Phoenix, Arizona. Just letting you know if you want to come. Ian, program significant written feedback segment, which is highly useful. Perfect.
Yeah, it's basically we cheat because we include business plan review, which has some limited value, but frankly, the majority of the value is being able to look at being able to throw 20 people at the company, which you can't do one-on-one.
Right.
Or at least we can't do one-on-one, but we can throw 20 people at a company in a written format to narrow that down to a smaller number for the one-on-one, because then we get to see what did they notice, and we get to ask the entrepreneur, who was helpful? This is the most important question. Who was helpful to you in a way that works for you?
Right.
And whatever version of that question you ask, you have to ask that. Different ways of asking it, but whatever version works.
Yeah, going back to personality, right? It feels as if like you can get all the technical part.
I come from Wall Street adjacent. There are plenty of really smart assholes.
Yes, I believe you. And just like building off of what you're saying, Ian, I fast forwarded to this slide here on the key considerations, and this is again what we coach the entrepreneurs on when they're seeking mentorship, right? Is like asking themselves, like, and this is part of this conversation that you're saying, right? So does this person understand like these challenges are unique to me? Are they willing to advocate on my behalf, right? And the right stage. Do they have experience in what I'm working on, right? So it's also about arming the mentee so that they can advocate for themselves, right? And that's so helpful because when they're in part, and I don't know, Ian, how your program is structured necessarily in terms of time, right? Like what the sunset is on this matching, but for us is like we have this 8-week program, right? And there's a sunset where the commitment ends right at the end of the program. And if the two individuals want to continue a relationship, they definitely can, right? But there's a structure where we have a sunset where this ends. And so I think it's so important more often than not, they continue to have the relationship years after. But also it's how do we arm, because we've seen this a seed spot in organizations that I've been a part of as well, where I met Senna, actually, where this might be their first mentor, right? And so just looking at it from that piece as well, where this might be the first relationship like this. And so as this program is sunsetting and they're out into the world, is how do we coach them so that they're ready and armed and prepared? Since they know now what the experience is like of having a mentor within the structure that we've provided, right? It's like how then you go do it on your own. It's
add something to that. Somebody please feel free to shut me down because I'm talking too much, but sorry, I'm a little bit obsessed with the topic. It's the name of my organization. The other aspect of that is we ask our mentors to complete as volunteers a medium-sized engagement. What's a medium-sized engagement? I'll let them and the entrepreneur work that out. I mean, if anyone has concerns, we ask and we have guidelines. It's like the pirate code.
Right.
But our big issue becomes a vast number of the folks who are mentors make a living as advisors to small and growing businesses. Right. And they're welcome to charge after. And as long as it's not a surprise, right? Like we've had several successful business relationships, but they have to do the thing initially. And for new folks, like for folks who know who've been through our program for years, like that's not a problem because I find out and we have a conversation. But for new folks, like that's one of the hardest conversations. Hi, I know you do this for a living, right? Anyone here, you're all supporting entrepreneurs. People come up to you to party. I'm starting a company. Can I tell you about it? It's a party, really? I guess, sort of. My rule is as long as I don't have to follow up, I'll listen. And I don't have your answers. I have other people's questions. But when you're looking at this, sunset, yes, we've had. We do it a little bit differently, but this is your show. But like we also in the beginning need to build in when does it go from being a program appointed volunteer, because there's no business model in the world for which SeedSpot or Bethesda Green or the Venture Capital Network or anybody or conveners like can pay the people who mentor their regular billable rate. Absolutely. And I've been a mentor in maybe 15 different programs over the years because I like to see how other people do it and swap learnings. There's no business model where that works in the social enterprise space. Yeah. But these people we can charge later. And what do you tell the entrepreneur about that? And what do you tell the mentors about that? That's my question to you.
Yeah, and so we leave it. I love Lauren's input here as well if she has, but we leave it. We have the sunset. The program ends, and this is when the formal mentorship as a participant of this program concludes. And so we let them have. Well, actually, we ask them to have a final meeting as this mentor mentee on their seat spot, and then at that point, if they want to continue that relationship, what are the terms of that relationship, right? And so, do we do another 6 months? Do we do we meet once a month for a year? Does the mentor want to move into a role where they become an advisor for the organization, a board member for the organization? Right? That's up to them to determine those boundaries and where they want to take it. Lauren, is there anything you want to add there? Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was said well. We have an outline for that final meeting. Yeah. So that can come up. We also, as an alum of any Seed Spot program, they have access to Seed Spot mentors through Seed Spot.
Yeah.
Whenever they want. So if that business is, hey, this was great, I'm not ready to engage this person in a paid capacity, I'm going to go back in. I'm basically going to go back into the start of the funnel and get assigned another mentor through Seed Spot. Then that would be another limited time engagement as well. So the entrepreneur has options. But I think there have been several mentors that have kind of, for lack of a better, upsold afterwards, and that's perfectly fine as long as it's not during that engagement.
Yeah.
So another question to you all: do you track? So I'm assuming that most of us track the companies we work with, less intensively years after they've been through the program, but like, yes, how well did they do and what are they doing? It's a community, and all the folks I know here are very good at keeping a community of their alumni, and a lot of our mentors are, because we've been around forever. 12 people who were in our program 15 years ago are now running, $100 million shops, and so they get to be mentors. You don't have to do it to be a mentor with us. But one of the things we do is some mentors aren't right for them where they are. And we're trying, this is a thing I know that I don't know. We're trying to figure out a good way to express, other than one-to-one, which I know how to do, but like a standardized way, that you're going to make these light touch relationships, and they're not your mentor today, but like you might want to reach out to them in a year. Mm-hmm. Because you might have expanded into another country or another region, and that's what they're good at, and that they're not where you are today. Does anybody else on the call have a formal process for checking in on that? Because that's right now, we're even 20 years in, that's still a thing we do. Yeah. Ad hoc, which I don't like.
Which is that it takes a lot of time to do ad hoc. For us, it's actually, in terms of like in a year from now, in 5 years from now, we have it flipped where we put the onus on the entrepreneur to reach out to us, right? What Lauren mentioned about being a Seed Spot alum is that indefinitely they can come back to Seed Spot, right? And seek a conversation with a mentor in a particular industry or a particular question, right? So that we put the onus on the entrepreneur to come back to us, but not necessarily. That's Lauren, if you want to correct me as well. By the way, I joined Seed Spot in March. That's why I'm asking. I'm like, Lauren may have a little more context. And before that, I was at Watson Institute, which is where I met Senna. That's in the Zoom chat as well. And so that's my understanding of it. That we put the onus on the entrepreneur to reach out to us and flip on it. But Ian, I love that process of as well as saying, hey, look, this is a person. Like you're not where you are in the stage. You're not ready to have a valuable, fulfilling relationship with this mentor right now. But if you get to the stage in 2 years, which is what you're talking about, right? Or whatever the timeline may be, it's that then you can reach out to them. So I don't know if you have a structure, Lauren, if you want to add anything to that.
I would just add on, like, during the engagement itself, I think we encourage a lot of times at the initial match, even before they even have their first meeting. Mm-hmm. We've got entrepreneurs saying, hey, I didn't want to be matched with this person, I want to be matched with that person, and it feels like a very kind of consumeristic, like I'm not thinking about this mentor as a whole person, as like why Seed Spot may have paired me with them. It's just, right. I read their LinkedIn profile, and I don't want to work with them for some reason. We always encourage the first meeting, and then Jorge will separately reach out to the mentee and the mentor to say, how did that first meeting go? And that's kind of the opportunity to either, redirect. And sometimes it's just, we didn't get a chance to cover this item. Either the mentee, they weren't on the same page, so we may help. And that is like more of just a manual process. But sometimes at that point, it's like, great, this doesn't seem to be meeting the needs of one or the other. And I think kind of coach them through, how do we close that relationship now with an open door? But I think that the piece that I've taken away after doing this for several years is encouraging the entrepreneur who wants to be quick to say,
right,
I'm doing this program, I'm paying, I was expecting, someone to come in and do XYZ for me, and almost reframing like, what is a mentor and how do you actually, with most anyone in our network, and get something valuable out of it, and kind of go back to, let's try this again. And if it really doesn't work, we'll redirect, but we're not going to just fly through mentors as if they're kind of just disposable products, if you will.
Yeah. I had to put someone on the spot who was a mentee, Senna. Senna, you were paired with 2 mentors when you were a Watson scholar, when you were an entrepreneur in the Watson program. And so in terms of what we're talking about here, we'd love to hear your perspective from the mentee side. How was your experience with that matching that was done by Watson, actually by me, because I was managing the mentor network. So maybe I'm putting myself on the spot with this one. And so, Senna, I would love to hear just if you can unmute yourself and share what deltas and pluses, like what positives and negatives occurred from that matching that we did for you. Going once, Senna? Going twice?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you clearly.
Okay, so it's evening on my side, so good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I'll just jump into the question. So for me, because I had 2 mentors at Watson, it was like a great opportunity for me. I didn't have to lack on certain resources, because when I reached out to one of my mentors, Kim, and he didn't really have the expertise I was looking for, the information I was looking for, I was able to find that in Leon, and vice versa. When Leon didn't have an information, I could get that from Kim. So they both connected me well and all of that. So I'd say the whole journey of mentorship was like very impactful in my journey, and even now in my work as an entrepreneur and all I do, because both of them are well versed in the area, the particular expertise that I am sort of venturing into. So that has been the experience for me.
Thank you, Senna, for sharing. And have you been able to, did you, as the program sunset and ended, did you maintain a relationship with either of your mentors, a formal relationship?
Yeah, I actually still have a relationship with both of them, but I think I communicate more with Kim than Leon because of her schedule. But Leon is always available to me whenever I reach out to her.
Okay, thank you so much, Senna, for sharing. I swear, Senna's on a plant. I didn't know she was joining. All right, so let's keep moving forward. But I'm loving this conversation, particularly as we're all coming from the perspective of being a manager of mentors. And so let's go in here, right? And so this is our advice to entrepreneurs in terms of finding a mentor outside of this program, right? So going into continuing the conversation. And so much of that is clarity, is like what identifying, like, hey, what do I need right now in my business? What type of, or in what places am I looking for feedback? And in what places am I looking for expertise, right? And that's just an initial self-assessment. And this is, again, simplifying that process, checking in the network or asking for an introduction or do it so themselves as an initial step. and then have an honest conversation, right? So much of that, and Ian, as we were talking about, it's like that first meeting, and Lauren was talking about this as well. It's like that first meeting. When you're out into the world, this is outside the structure of this program, but it's also helpful within the structure of the program too. It's having an honest conversation of where you are right now, where are you looking, what gaps are you looking to cover, and if and how that mentor based on the experience and personality type and coaching type fits with you, right? So you're dating initially and trying out to see if it's a good fit or if it's not, right? And at that point, rinse and repeat. So this is like a very simplified version of what we coach the mentees to do so outside once a subset of the program. Mentor whiplash is a real thing. And in a program like Watson, just talking about the Sennas here, the structure there is 2 mentors always. And the benefit there was that if you have 2 mentors, then they can bounce ideas of each other. So you use her Senna, right, from experience, unprompted, again, not a plant, where she was bouncing off of the 2 mentors. And that has a benefit because they can build off of each other. And if one mentor is not able to cover one piece, the other can. And we often will ask the mentees to meet with the 2 mentors as a trio as well, and then have one-on-one separate too. But this also can cause mentor whiplash. And I think it's being cognizant of this occurring in the entrepreneur's experience through that program. Particularly if they have more, obviously if they have more than one mentor. Mentor whiplash is basically just to kind of make sure we're all on the same page here. Is that the mentor whiplash is where one mentor is telling them one piece of advice, and then the other one is having an opposite piece of advice for the same problem, right? And so now the mentee is stuck in the middle, is like, wait, what's the right thing? Kind of going back to way into the beginning of the session where I shares you go to YouTube and say, how do you do this? And there's 150 YouTube videos and who's right? So this at a more nuanced level, this part occurs too. And Ian, just to bounce off on what you put in the chat, in our program as well, that's part of it as well, right? So leveraging or leveraging and meeting that network. We do have mentor sessions. Not all of our mentor engagement is one-on-one. In fact, a lot of our mentor engagement is in groups as well. So we have a lot of pitch feedback. We have a lot of mentor roundtables where mentors are meeting entrepreneurs just as a one-off for 30 minutes, right? And giving feedback and so on. So that's part of kind of tapping into that network as a mentor, right? And that's the value added. That's a value proposition for a mentor as a volunteer to be part of a program like this as well. So then tapping back into mentor whiplash as we wrap up here. Basically, we got a couple of pieces of advice for the entrepreneurs. And again, this was tailored for the entrepreneur. And so ultimately, if you're having the mentor whiplash, when in doubt, your customers, ask your customers, right? As your current customers, as the folks that you're working with as well, if you have this mentor whiplash where you're not sure which direction to go. Sometimes as well, it's not sometimes, often it's good to trust yourself as well. Because the entrepreneur may already have the answer, and then be leaning one way or another, or even a third way that neither mentor really was bringing to the table. And this is all within the context of these matches that are done in a program, right? Also, it's completely fair to decline advice, right? A mentor is not your boss, right? A mentor is not the owner of this. This is advice, and this I've worked with mentors where they've gotten frustrated, where they said they've said, I'm going to use an example of Watson because I managed a network there for 5 years, and so I have a plethora of firsthand experience. And so we've had mentors where they dropped off halfway out of the program. They said, this mentee's not listening to me, right? And so this kind of building off of this first bullet point here, it can go the extreme as well when you're managing a mentor network, is going back to is the mentee trained to be a mentee as well. Anyway, so I'm going on a tangent. Back on topic. So the last thing is also maintaining their vision when it comes to mentor whiplash with a bit of flexibility as well. This can be a very difficult thing to to encounter. And a good advice is us as a mediator as well, is communicating thoroughly that the mentee, the entrepreneur, can also reach out to the program staff and say, this is what's happening, right? And so having an opportunity to discuss this dichotomy that's occurring with someone that it's not involved in the actual mentor relationship, but rather in the programming side of things as well. And this is the last piece as well that we advise our entrepreneurs. And so it is maintaining relationships, right? And so this cadence of communication and just going off of the assumption that the mentees is their first time being mentees, the first time meeting with a mentor, right? And so even something as email communication, just a small piece of training and being aware of that they may not know the cadence that a professional, a mentor who's done this for a long time may be expecting, right? So post meeting, right? A thank you, an update, a quarterly. We task them as well, creating an email list and keeping contacts updated, right? So it's not only like official mentors that you meet with and work with, but also folks in the network that can be a resource and that they can also bring value to years down the line. So making sure keeping your contacts updated. I have here 2 examples of what that looks like. So this here is an example of, and this is recent, I think it was back in May, this is another Watson alumni that I worked with 3 years ago, right? And he's based out of New York. He runs a he's Nepali, but based in New York. He runs a Nepali tea company that also has excursions to Nepalese farms. It has a training program for farmers too. And Nish, as he goes, keeps me updated, right? I'm on his list, and I'm a former mentor of him while he was a Watson student. And so this is one example, again, talking to an audience of entrepreneurs of what this could look like, how to keep mentors that were in a season of your life updated on what you're doing now. And
our variation on this is, like I assume most of you, we track what happens both from direct resources and social media with our alumni, and we also know who reviewed and was mentors for them. So our database is set up so that there's an interesting story. It tells me send this to these 12 people. And also, and after I fix the bug, it no longer does that if I've already sent them something in the past month, but fix that. But that's something we can do. Like, we know who our alumni are, and we're tracking what they're doing. And our mentors start as business plan reviewers because they're written, whatever, and then they become mentors, some of them. But we have this big pool of folks, and it'd be great if the companies track them all down, but we know where they are because they're our biggest asset.
Right.
And so we send out notices saying, hey, remember you read this company, 10 years ago. You might not know what they're doing. They just moved to another country or whatever. So and it's fairly easy to do. So
I love that. We have that at a different scale. So we do have a monthly mentor newsletter that comes out, and obviously inboxes, like the open rate in any of these newsletters is never going to be above 50% or 25% or 30%. But we do are cognizant of, hey, if we have an update of a alumni, of an entrepreneur alumni that graduated 10 years ago, right, 5 years ago, a year ago, whatever, maybe a big update, we make sure to share that, because we are in touch with our alumni as well. So kind of in the same family as we're talking about, Ian. And I also, again, because talking to entrepreneurs, what is like on the mentee side? And so I mentioned at the beginning of the call, I've been a mentor. I've also been a mentee and continue to be a mentee. And so I reached out to a mentee of mine that I hadn't spoken to in 4 years, I would say. And just off the bat, just thought of her and say, hey, just a thank you. Right. And so maintaining the relationship. And she moved away to another state, and we haven't really connected over the last couple of years. And I just thought of her because of something, I mean, you can see, if you read it off the screen, you can see why I thought of her. And so wanted to reach and say hi. And so I think that part of the onus is also on the entrepreneur as well to like check in with folks that in a season in their lives, like were mentors and can be again in the future, right? You have the relationship that you've already built. And that is the end of my presentation. And you know, it really kind of in conclusion, just understanding that, particularly as I'm speaking to program managers here or mentorship or mentor network managers, is thinking through what is the process or what is also the mentee experiencing as well. And I think a big takeaway here as well is in terms of we can do everything we can to have like a stellar group of mentors, right? But if the mentee is not necessarily ready for that relationship by lack of training, experience, whatever it may be, right? There could be some shortfalls, even if we have some great matches on paper, for example. And then just building off of the conversation too, is that personality match and like a coaching match or coaching style is such a big part of the equation, right? You get all the technical pieces and you have the wrong, right? Like Ian said, like there's a lot of financial experts in Wall Street, but they're assholes, right? And so like if you can have the entire expertise in the world, if you don't have good relationship skills, that's not a good mentor, right? Ian.
Well, and I want to narrow down on that. It's what the mentee is looking for. So some people like the and not everybody who doesn't filter their words is an asshole, but some people like the sort of being just told what the person thinks directly without regard for any social cues. Not a lot of people, but some people. And so, but it's, it's not so much that they don't have social skills, it's that are they the right set of social skills to match with? And that's why we do a lot of, we try and make every interaction useful for the entrepreneur and the company, but there's a lot of light touch stuff at the beginning of our program, which is ostensibly about their business model, but it's really about, are these people the right?
Compatible, right? And going back to those personality types and that we discussed, 30 minutes ago and so on. But yeah, this is a wonderful conversation. I wasn't expecting to go this way, which is amazing. I love connecting with you, Ian. Stephanie, do you have any lasting thoughts about what we discussed today that you want to share, if you have any?
Thank you so much for the opportunity. I just want to just share, I love the fact of that last slide of relationships building. Yeah. It's amazing how a couple things, not only just the connectivity between mentee and mentorship, but we reach certain phases in our career spell, right? And also personal lives, that the relevancy kind of interjects perspectives differently over time. So definitely could speak to just that. I did see the last question about the CRM. That's one of the key things I'm hoping to jump into the organization I'm facilitating, is to have those conversations about having some of this prospectively on a, I would say, speed app, not necessarily app, I'm in quotes, but more or less accessibility. Because in personal accessibility to be where it's defined for the need,
right?
Not just for the program.
Yes, and I think we didn't touch into that in this conversation, but we have Seed Spot as well. Like we are focused on entrepreneurs that are particularly coming from underserved communities and backgrounds as well, predominantly focusing on BIPOC and minority groups in the US. And so much of that, and that's that adding that piece of the equation adds more nuance as well to this mentor matching process too, that we didn't get to discuss today, but we'll love to. I personally would love to connect with all of you. Senna, I'll send you a text after this. We can connect, but all of you would love to as well connect, and we can continue this conversation, because I think there's a lot to learn from each other in terms of how we're providing value and to the people that we serve, and also to the mentors that are part of our programs as well. All right. Well, thank you, Ian. Thank you so much, Lauren. Thank you, Stephanie. And thank you, Colin, for putting this together. Thank you, Senna, as well, for being my plant today and answering my question. And I appreciate y'all. We're right on time. I want to be cognizant of that and respect your calendars. And so thank you so much. I look forward to connecting. So
Thank you.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Cheers, y'all.
and thank you, Jorge, for being here and for sharing with us, and to everyone else for joining us today.
Absolutely. Take care.
Thank you.
Great conversation. Thank you.
Bye.